The INEOS Fusilier. It was supposed to be INEOS's bold step into the future, an electric 4x4 with the same no-nonsense off-road ready DNA of the Grenadier. Announced in early 2024, then shelved by July of the same year. And now, speculation pointing to a potential 2028 launch. So INEOS's hesitation tells us a lot about the state of the EV market today. Let's break down why INEOS is treading carefully and what it would take to bring the Fusilier back to life. Hi, I'm Josh, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the on-again, off-again, and then on-again history of the INEOS Fusilier, which is currently not on, but it's definitely not off, according to INEOS. In February of 2024, INEOS revealed plans for the Fusilier and showed a prototype, a 4x4 built in the likeness of the Grenadier, being slightly smaller, but with the same rugged and adventurous look of its big brother. But with two powertrain options, an all-electric and a range extender electric. The range extender option consists of a small gasoline engine that powers a generator to maintain the charge level of the battery for when external charging isn't available, which makes the Fusilier more off-road capable while reducing emissions. They announced in partnership with the industry leader Magna that the Fusilier would be built in Graz, Austria, the same location as the Mercedes G-Wagon and former home of the Fisker Ocean. At the time, the idea was to offer something that could match diesel-powered reliability while also meeting stricter emission standards. But fast forward just 6 months, and they found themselves in a completely different automotive landscape. EV growth is slowing. It's not gone, but demand is stagnating, and manufacturers are scrambling to figure out what's next. INEOS, being a relatively small and new automaker, has even more reason to be cautious. Unlike legacy brands that can better absorb losses, every vehicle INEOS produces needs to make financial sense. And that brings us to another key factor: government regulations. The government regulators got ahead of the public in dictating when the end of internal combustion engines would be, with some countries banning the sale in 2030 or 2035. And between now and then, ratcheting up the requirements for reduced CO2 emissions that are choking auto manufacturers. Even if demand isn't skyrocketing, automakers are still under pressure to produce EVs. Why? Because regulations in major markets like the EU, UK, and the US mandate that manufacturers reduce fleet-wide emissions. If they don't, they face massive fines or have to buy carbon offset credits from other companies. Here's how it works. Automakers have a fleet-wide CO2 emissions target, usually measured in grams per mile, or kilometers per mile based on the country. If they exceed this, they either have to pay penalties or buy credits from companies that produce cleaner vehicles. This is why companies like Tesla and Rivian make bank selling credits to automakers that couldn't meet their targets. For INEOS, which sells a relatively small number of vehicles, the tipping point for needing an EV isn't as clear-cut as it is for bigger brands. Generally, regulations start becoming a major concern for when an automaker sells over 10,000 units per year in the UK or Europe or the US, so they've got a little runway time. INEOS is approaching that threshold in a couple of markets, where selling an electric model like the Fusilier would help offset emissions from its combustion engine vehicles and avoid costly penalties. Plus, having an EV in the lineup makes it easier to expand into markets where stricter emission policies, like California or parts of the EU, are considering future bans on non-electric sales. Many auto manufacturers saw the writing on the wall and went all in on fully electric vehicles without fully understanding that the demand from the government did not match the demand of the buying public. EVs have sold well, partially because of incentives and subsidies which are either being pulled or are now drying up, and of course because they're truly a good fit for the right person who either has a defined commute or a place where charging is easy, and many EV owners frequently have a second vehicle in the household as a backup. So if they need to add a low-carbon option into the mix, why did INEOS pull the plug on the Fusilier? Well, I think there are three key reasons. First, there's the simple fact that EV sales aren't growing the way everyone expected. Automakers bet big on electric, assuming the demand would keep skyrocketing. But here in 2025, we're seeing hesitation from buyers. What used to be a battery anxiety has now shifted to charger anxiety. Charging infrastructure, battery longevity concerns, high costs, and low resale values are slowing adoption. While some mainstream EVs are still selling well, niche vehicles like an electric off-roader are a bit of a harder sell. If you're INEOS, a company built around rugged, go-anywhere vehicles, you've got to be asking yourself, are my customers really ready to go full electric? They don't think so yet, and feel that the range extender is a critical necessity if the Fusilier is to properly succeed. However, the EU is set to ban combustion engines from 2030, and the Fusilier can't get out of the gate until 2028, so that makes it a non-starter. The second reason, the auto industry itself is in really rough shape. Supply chain issues haven't fully recovered, raw material costs are high, tariffs are looming, and making EVs profitable is proving harder than expected. Even giants like Ford and GM are scaling back their electric vehicle rollouts. So if the big players are slowing down, you can imagine why a relatively young automaker like INEOS might want to hit pause. INEOS is still establishing itself in the automotive world. The Grenadier has been well received, but it's not mass market. And diving headfirst into EV right now could be a massive financial risk. And finally, there's the technology angle. INEOS has been quite open about its interest in hydrogen as an alternative fuel. While the Fusilier originally planned as a battery electric vehicle with a range extender option, some think the company is holding out for hydrogen to mature before fully committing to EVs. Fuel cell electric cars are powered by hydrogen. Although a fuel cell car runs on electricity, it does so differently than a battery-powered plug-in hybrid car. In a fuel cell, the hydrogen reacts electrochemically to produce electricity to power the car. Current versions of other brands, which do exist, have a range of 300 to 400 miles, and filling the tank takes the same amount of time as putting gas in your car today. INEOS demonstrated a prototype at the Goodwood Festival of Speed back in 2023, and they're quite excited that this is something that could actually exist. However, hydrogen still has some major hurdles: cost, infrastructure, and efficiency. But for off-roaders, it might make more sense in the long run than full battery electric. So it looks like INEOS is waiting to see where things land before they fully commit. And where does that leave the Fusilier? Well, rumors suggest INEOS is far from done with the idea. There's speculation that by 2028 the Fusilier could re-emerge. Maybe with a different powertrain approach, maybe with a better battery tech, or even hydrogen hybrid. It's all speculation for now, but one thing's clear: INEOS isn't in a rush to jump in the EV bandwagon just for the sake of it. And honestly, that might be the smartest move they can make. What do you think? Should INEOS bring the Fusilier back sooner, or are they smart to wait until the market shakes out? Let me know in the comments. For now, all we hear is that the project is on the shelf but not in the trash can, and discussion by INEOS executives still indicate pretty regularly that the Fusilier is still in the cards. If you're at all interested, I'd recommend that you visit the INEOSGrenadier.com website, click on the magnifying glass and search and enter Fusilier and register your interest so that they know that potential buyers might be out there. It'll be interesting to see what the next act will be for INEOS. I actually think that we may see some other things before the Fusilier appears. Just a hunch. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.